Hi, Assalamualaikum, and very good morning to everyone. Please accept our apologize for any inconvenient cause. My name is Afzan Mahadi, Head of Coaching Expertise, National Coaching Academy of Malaysia. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to the Perform Coaching Talk and Share Series 5 for year 2020. Thank you to fellow ICCE team, International Council of Coaching Excellence, Majlis Sukan Negeri, coaches, teachers, students, ISN, and all local and global viewers. Also, Selamat Hari Kemerdekaan, as known as a National Day to all Malaysian citizens for the upcoming event on the 31st of August 2020. Okay, it can be challenging being a coach. You are constantly being asked to make a decision with which impact not only yourself, but also your athletes and your team. You need to find a balance between players' development and winning, and you need to meet the needs of your athletes too. Doing this effectively in a consistent manner requires that you are clear on the coaching responsibility. So today I'm going to share a little bit on the presentation of coach responsibility, learning how to prepare athletes for the peak performance. All right, before we go for the learning how to prepare athletes for the peak performance, I would like to touch on the characteristic of the effective coaching. It relates to a coaching style, it's related to the coaching expertise, and so on. I do have around 10 characteristics of the effective coaching that we would like to discuss today. The first one is to the provision of the totally planned system in order for you to do the coaching program for the, depending on the level of the program that you have. Like in Malaysia, we have a school level, we have district, we have states level, and also we have development and elite team for the national. So have like the provision of totally planned system for that particular program, including the motivation camp, including the training session, including the, for example, like a circuit, a competition. You can consider your competition is that a first star, 3-star, 1-star, 3-star, or 5-star, something like that. The second one, the maximization of the productivity that you have. So being a coach, in the characteristic that you need to have, you need to maximize your productivity in terms of the knowledge given, in terms of the assistance in order for you to achieve in a level of coaching expertise. The third one is the maximization of the direction. What are your direction in your particular coaching style, in your particular coaching environment? Are you going for the elite level, or are you going for the school level, or for the states level? And continuous with the maximization of the intrinsic motivation. As everybody knows, as a coach, coach is not only coach for the sports. Coach only, or actually relate for the coach for life. So to maximization of the intrinsic motivation, actually, coach, we can consider coach as a a motivator for their athletes, regardless what level they're coaching for. So I'm continue with the number 5, the maximization of the instructional process. So you need to maximize how are you going to do, like on the basic coaching, on the advanced coaching, or on the intermediate level of coaching. So you need to have your own stage of coaching on the instructional process. We go for the next point, the maximization of the positive experiences. Positive experiences as a coach, you may share your knowledge with the other coaches. Like being a good coach, you must have your own group of the expertise, like a mentor-mentee. For example, you have your coach that require you to follow in certain program that you may copy and paste, but you need to mold in your own way on your training regime. Next is the maximization of the social experiences. When you refer coaches with the environment of the effective coaches, you must have the networking among coaches. No matter that networking come from the local or international, globally. Nowadays, because of the COVID-19, since March 2020, we actually come with the new norms to communicate with local or international level via Zoom meeting, via whatever internet level, Zoom meeting, StreamYard, or whichever that related, in order for us to make a face-to-face interaction. So every coaches must be more productive, more creative in terms of maximization of the social experiences among other coaches. So that's my point of number 7. So I have another 3 points that I want to share today. The next one is the maximization of the progress information. The progress information itself actually can assist coaches to enhance their knowledge in terms of theory and practical. So we need to have the maximization of the progress information. We can get the information from internet, from the courses that we attend for the coaching, continuous coaching education, and so on. Then the second last, actually the transfer of the control of group. How you going to transfer of control to the group or yourself? This is an element that effective coaches that we need to have. And the most important part for me to conclude from number 1 to number 9 point actually is to maximization of contents variety, meaning that you may copy and paste the training regime that you have from South Africa, that you have from England, Japan, from Thailand, and so on, but you need to mold that the content of the copy paste that you get, the training regime that you get from other country, you need to mold and you need to variety that contents based on the local needs, based on the environment at your place, based on the ability of your athletes. So this is a 10 characteristic of the effective coaching that I would like to share this morning before we start for the next element of the learning process. Okay. Learning how to prepare athletes for the peak performance. I have around 9 points that I can share with you today related to the coach responsibility. Every one of the point that I'm going to raise out, I'm going to discuss with you guys today actually related to one to another. So without fail, every coaches must have the responsibility of 9 basic elements in order for coaches to prepare their athletes for peak performance based on their needs. It's not only for the national level, it's not only for the state level, it's not only for the district level. You may use this one for recreation, you may use this one for mass participation, you may use this one for the high performance. And as a parents, whoever viewing us today, parents may also use this type of element on the 9 element that I would like to share today in order to groom their young kids if they are related to the sports coaching. All right. I would like to share with you the coach responsibility that I want to share with you started with risk management, continuous with injury prevention, and the communication, the most important part in life, nutrition, goal setting, coaches knowledge or the coaches information that coaches want to share, training stage, early versus late maturing athletes, and also burnout and dropout. As I mentioned to you earlier, guys, the learning how to prepare athletes for the peak performance, I just would like to touch on the top of the every single element. If you want to go deep in terms of the nutrition element, you need to refer with a nutritionist or dietitian. But in certain level of the generalities that I would like to share today, might be can easily coping with your own self, with your own environment, on what you're supposed to do when you want to prepare athletes for the peak performance. All right, I'm going to go for the first on the risk management. Okay, risk management related to coaches have some level of responsibility for all aspects of their athletics program, of their training program, in order to make everybody who are involved in your training regime, in your training environment safe in terms of mental or physical. But today I'm going to use on the physical element, physical environment. The first one, I would like to share on the ensure that facility exceed regulatory safety standard. Okay, I may use one, for example, a court of basketball court. Basketball court, normally they use indoor court. When you're dealing with the high performance, you use indoor court. What the element that you regularly have a look, have a check before you start the training program? The first one relate to the floor or the surface of the training facilities. Maybe you have a look on the lighting itself. So you need to implement regular inspection and maintenance of the schedule for facilities equipment use. For example, the a basketball ring, if the basketball ring is broken, so you need to reconsider this to check and to discuss with the management of that court. All right. So we continue to ensure the equipment exceeded regulatory safety standard. Okay, when we link with the safety standard, every local authority who actually have, or every association, every national sports council, or whoever keep or whoever look after the facility must know standard of the normal regulatory level. So normally they do have like checkup on the equipment at least in 4 times yearly. I mean, what I refer the equipment is a stick or steel equipment. But for example, other than that, for example, like whoever play hockey, they need to have a stick, make sure that stick is not broken. That is a more to the regulatory safety standard for their own apparatus. All right. Okay. Next, ensure that all equipment used is safe and appropriate for the participants involved in sports activities. When we are reaching the word of the participants involved in sports activity and appropriate, we need to refer the training apparatus or training equipment that suit with their own height, with their own morphological body and so on. For example, like you playing archery, make sure that the bow is not too big. Like for example, they do have like a baby bow for young kids. They have a standard bow for the adults and so on. So this is the element that coach must reconsider and recheck on the athlete, so that the safety will be looked into a main element on the before they start their training program. Next is ensure that the installing of new equipment is completed by professional. This is, I refer with the a stick or a steel a goal post, for example, a goal post. Why? Because if you not really knows how to place the goal post with the standard or the balance of level of goal post might be falling down to the surface. So it's will occur the injuries, and this is a big risk management that every association or every event management who look after that facility should know on that. So the risk management that I refer today is more to the risk management for a basic for the like a space. But what happened for the athletes? So for example, athletes, the coaches must have a check on their shoes itself. Is that they use, like football, they use a shoe with a sharp start of the shoes itself, or they have like jewelries that might be when they play together, that when they are, for example, like contact each other may injure other people. So this is a basic risk management, the injuries that normally happen for the kids or for the athletes who are participate in a certain level of a program. Okay, I go for a next one. Next one is more to the injury prevention. Participating in sports involve a certain level of risk, even when reasonable precautions have been implemented. For example, I'm referring with coaches, I'm referring with athletes, and I'm referring with sports skill. Okay, I go for I'm going to touch on the first one is in the coaches itself. Being a coach, you must equip yourself on the first aid knowledge. Why? Because not every program that you have, you must you have the physiotherapist, medical assistant, or whoever related to medical following your team. So to be clear and to be on the person who will fast react on the prevention of the injuries, every coaches must have the first aid knowledge, or might be in certain level of a country, they might have like a basic life support, how to handle when you saw your athletes bleeding. you saw your athletes saying that twisted while they're playing or while they're doing whatever physical activities. And injury itself, injury prevention, how you deal with injury. Are you you cannot be panicking during the event or when you face the so injuries, when you see the injuries in front of you. For example, coaches who are in a very extreme sports, for example, like rugby. Rugby, they do have their own medical team who are dealing with rough activities. Sometimes they have bleeding because most of the contact sports, actually, I can consider that at least 60% of their athletes will undergo the injuries. So how are we going to prevent the injuries? So it's been taught during the training program, hopefully for every coaches. So the coaches should have consideration on this safe environment. When I'm touched with the safe environment, on the previous slide, there is a risk management in terms of the a surface of the training area. If you see the hole, a hole on the surface of the training area, coach should consider the area is not safe. So there is a prevention. How are you going to prevent the athletes to not go to that certain area? Okay, so the safe environment play essential role here, and safe environment includes the if you see let's say that you have a thunder, a slightly rainy day, but there is a thunder there is a lightning there, so you need to stop the training program or the competition. All right. How are you going to have a safe environment? How are you going to have a good prevention of the injuries? How? We need to have a very good two-way communication among athletes, among coaches, among other stakeholders who are with that particular training program. So, referring with the communication, we need to have a very strong on the sports management team. Sport management team who are dealing with this particular group must have I can consider they need to be knowledgeable than others, right? So the beside the safety environment and so on, coaches must know on the athletics or athletics healthcare by doing like before they start their training program or training regime. Might be twice a year they need to have like a basic medical checkup to make sure that the athletes in a good condition on their health, a good condition on their mental and so on. So coach may refer this program to the an expert to handle with the a group of their athletes. All right, that is from coach on the injury prevention. But who are responsible for the injury prevention? Of course, athletes who are actually responsible on the injury prevention. How do we go on the injury prevention? How do we cope with the injury prevention? We need to cope with the sport skill itself. We need to occupy ourselves, or ourselves I'm referring with athletes, so might be coach may deliver this point to make sure that they have their very good foundation in terms of physical fitness, in terms of the physical attribute, in terms of mental attribute and so on. Why? By doing like a technical movement or tactical movement, you need to have a very strong muscle. In order for you to have a strong muscle, you need to have a proper foundation program in sports conditioning, in a physical conditioning, in mental conditioning, mental toughness, a winning mentality, a program, and so on. So every athlete must reconsider that as a good way to improve or to prevent the injury while you're doing a training program. So precise the technical movement depending on the sports demand, athletic training regime that they've been developed, and body required to recovery. So when we go or we think about the body requirement recovery, we need to get the expertise level from the medical team to say that are you able or you not able to continue your training program. Might be you need to have a need to rest for about 2 weeks, but with a knee injury for 2 weeks, but you need to have a proper program on rehabilitation program, rehab, and so on. The basic rehab to make sure that you are at the same par when you return to play later on. So the conclusion that I can share with you guys on the injury prevention, it is really a good I can say like injury prevention actually the best way for you to fully equip yourself first before you go for the training program in terms of technical movement or tactical movement later on. Because all the technical and tactical movement require a very strong development of muscle depending on your demand of your sports. So this is a share of this one on the injury prevention. All right. We go for the communication. The communication, we have two communication here. The first one, being a coach, you need to have a clear communication with your athletes, with your training team, with your sports scientists, and so on. Okay, on the clear communication, we need to have like the bullet point that I can share here is expectation, goals, standard, feeling of the athletes to the athletes program. Like positive feedback after a good performance effort. All right. To promote positive communication, we have effective communication, positive feedback after good performance effort, corrective instruction and encouragement after performance mistake, and last one, technical instruction and the a moderate amount of general encouragement and related to the performance quality. So when you have a clear communication, the expectation of the athletes can be clear. What the training program, for example, I may use, what actually the training program that coach should share with athletes in 2 weeks' time. So athletes can setting their mind, setting their goal on the training program that they should have. So the expectation of the athletes must be clear. The goals, that is why I'm referring the expectation, and after that goals. Goals is the element that athletes should take into consideration when they have the planning from the expectation of the program that they have. And as a coach, you need to have a clear communication in terms of expectation of the performance of young athletes or the athletes that you coaching with. You cannot say that you can be a full-time reserve players or reserve athletes while the athletes itself want to play, because you need to share their performance in terms of physical fitness, in terms of the skill level, in terms of the mental preparation and so on. So the expectation over here play a essential role in order for you to compress or for you to improve the athletes' attributes within practical or the mentally preparation. The standard, the clear communication of the standard. What are the standards that coach need to have in order for young athletes or your athletes to be a part on your particular team? So you need to be clear so that the athlete itself can prepare their physical or their mental to be a part of the team members of your training session. And then feeling to the athletes. A coach must be 100% a professional over here to say that if athletes say that I don't like you, coach, why? Because you push me too hard. Why? Coach must give 101 a reason why you push these A athletes in certain level, because you want to achieve that speed of speed ability, or you want to achieve the defending program very well. So in a clear communication actually can share the feeling of the athletes and with the two ways of communication. Beside the clear communication, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, promoting the positive communication also a main element on the communication itself. For example, like effective communication can give accurate element on the what the coaches want to say, or coaches want to have like things like a two-way communication, something like that. So by doing the what we call effective communication, actually can give like a very good instruction or a very good conversation among athletes and coaches, among athletes with the team members, among athletes with the stakeholder beside that. All right. And positive feedback after good performance effort. Actually, this is the other good point that promote a positive communication in terms of giving feedback on good performance that athletes did during the training session and so on. So for example, there is no harm for coaches or trainers who give a big clap or to give a reward. It's just a sentence of reward that for example, like Thomas have or Ali have a very good training session today. He's actually a good player for good player of the day. So this is give like a good reward for the athletes who participate or training under you as a coach. The corrective instruction and encouragement after performance mistake. Okay, when we correct the athletes with the proper manner, the corrective instruction actually can gain performance. Why? By telling them how to do the right way of technique, of skill, or whatever related. So nobody's perfect in the world. So coach also sometimes can learn from the athlete itself why athletes do a left side on the, for example, like 45 degree instead of doing it on the 55 degrees, because there is never for me to say that coach is always right, but from here, from being a good communicator, good communication in the your training program actually can assist you as a coach to broaden base your knowledge, to have in a very good manner of your thinking level and so on. And the last one, technical instruction, and the a moderate amount of general encouragement, unlimited to the performance quality. So technical instruction and the moderate amount of the general encouragement, actually a big a point that you can continuous doing with your team members in order to make sure that bridging gap in between those who are in a very under par and those who are upper level. So we average the level of performance by keep giving a motivation, by doing like encouragement as a team members, as a coach. So coach also can use the other athletes when you playing, when you teach athletes with the team members. You may use other team members to encourage other athletes who are weaker to be in certain level of average and continuous in a top level. All right. Next, on the nutrition. Of course, for you to reaching optimal performance, the most critical part beside physical attribute or mental attribute, actually a nutrition. You may have a very good condition in terms of physical attribute, but if you don't eat proper food, you may affected with a very minimal performance. Instead of you maximize the performance, you optimum the performance to be excellence in certain level. So what actually nutrition? I divided nutrition here to 6 elements that I can share in one slide with you guys on the how to deal with nutrition, and at the same time to reach the peak performance of your program. I would like to share on the tournament tips. Tournament tips, actually you may use the tournament tips with the training tips, because whatever you do during the training, actually you repeat the same level of difficulty at your tournaments. So tournament tips for the nutrition, I have 4 points here. Number 1 is timing and meal snack size are related. This is refer with the what actually meal that you're supposed to have before, during, and after the event or after the training program. The nutritionists or dietitians actually encourage all athletes to have a simple meal, like for example 4 hours before the training program or tournament. So the timing and meal or snack size actually related to the what are you doing for the training or tournament program. All right, and target may vary depending on your sports. If you are from a rhythmic gymnastic, you might have different meal. If you come from the bodybuilder, you might have different meal without oil, no salt, no everything. And might be if you are footballer, you have different type. But if you are like, for example, endurance cyclist, you need big amounts of, for example, element, for example, like calories, carbohydrate, fluid, iron, protein, and so on. Before or during, you might replace with the juice bar or the bar that you make with yourself, or energy bar, something like that. Fluid and food preparation. Every athletes actually been encouraged to have their own fluid and food preparation. For example, like snacking, you have like multi-grain and something like that to prepare for your own way, because every athletes, they have their own different mold of the food that can be take before, during, and after the training or tournament. Achieving desired weight for the competitive purpose. This is referring for the weight management team or sports, for example, like silat, like taekwondo, like even like rhythmic gymnastic, no matter that they not really have like below 40 or below 50, but coaches require them to be skinny, powerful, but they need to achieve desired weight for the competition purpose. All right. What the nutrition and athletic performance needs? Nutrition and athletics performance need calories, carbohydrate, fluids, iron, vitamin, and other mineral and protein. But I've been discussed with the quite numbers of nutritionists, dietitian. For the youngsters who are aged 18 and below, actually not advisable for them to take any supplement such as pills and so on. They need to get the basic element on the calories, carbohydrate, and so on from the natural food. All right. So this is actually came from the cited from the scientific approach. Why? That one will be discussed later on the nutrition, and we need to discuss with the nutritionist, what an expert for this particular group. And recovery. Food is recovery. Besides sleep, beside massage, beside resting, food is one of the recovery element. I still remember when I discussed with one of my good friend who actually specialized in nutrition. A good recovery, like for example, vitamin C can enhance quite a good way of recovery methods for the athletes from the injury, something like that. All right, appropriately refuel and rehydrate the body recovery, promote muscle repair and growth, boost adaptation from the training session, and support immune function. All right, so recovery over here, they need to have a very so-called a good recovery boost. For example, they need to have like plain water for like 2 or 3 liters a daily, or they need to drink, for example, for dehydration level, every 20 minutes with 150 ml to 250 ml, something like that. All right, we go for the dehydration level. How do you know your athletes, what their symptom for the athletes dehydration level? For example, beside you check the urine color of your athlete, you may notice few elements on the dehydration level of your athletes. Number one, sometimes you can see when athletes always look like so thirsty, and athletes dry or sticky mouth, athletes not peeing very much, they have a very dark color yellow pee. Sometimes if they have when we use a refractometer, if a darker the darker your color of your pee, your urine, actually the higher of level dehydration. So normally when you use that refractometer, the numbers is 30 and above. That's considered dehydrate. Dry, and you have a dry skin, you have headache, you have a muscle cramp. But muscle cramp is not only referring with only for the you have not taken enough water during training or daily, but it's referring to the calcium level that you take. For example, you should have like a glass of fresh milk daily, something like that. So that is a partly of the cramp element out of the dehydration that I mentioned. All right. What are actually the fluid intake before exercise every 20 minutes, as I mentioned to you earlier? They divided into two types of age group, 6 to 12 and the 13 to 18 years old. For the 8 to 12 years old, they're required to have 150 to 270 ml sports drink, or might be a plain water that related. Then 1 to 2 hours before sports, 120 to 240 ml cold water, 10 to 15 minutes before sports, 120 to 240 ml cold water. This is referring from the experts' advice on the fluid intake. And for the athletes who are 13 to 18 years old, 150 to 300 ml sports drink, which is 1 to 2 hours before sports, 240 to 400 ml, 480 ml cold water, and 10 to 15 minutes before sports, you required to have 240 to 360 ml cold water. Again, whatever or whichever element that I highlighted on the nutrition actually based on the experts research that been done. All right. And lastly, on the nutrition, I'm referring with nutrition for travel. Nutrition for travel, the point for the nutrition for travel is portable travel food and fluid ideas for athletes, for coaches to have. While they fly, they need to have, like, for example, they need fruits, they need to, which is the in-flight, not actually giving your nutrition fluid or nutrition food. You may have your own, packing your own, and overcoming jet lag. The overcoming jet lag, this is more to psychological too. When you cross the border, for example, the time gap difference, saying like 10 hours gap difference, it look like midday and midnight. So sometimes you cannot cope as an athlete, you cannot cope with that situation. That I would like to suggest here, might be you can change your training regime. Instead of doing your training daily during daytime, you might change your training overcoming jet lag to overcoming jet lag by midnight. So by the end of the day that you reach that certain country, you can easily cope. Then you cannot falling sleep during the training or during the competition. And of course, when we reach on the travel for nutrition for travel, we need to preventing food poisoning. Sometimes our athletes or our team cannot cope with the food that they serve to you guys when you at that particular states or that particular country. So you need to have your own what food that you can eat and what food that you cannot eat. It's depending on your stomach level. All right. So all the element on the nutrition related, nutrition and athletics performance, recovery, tournament tips, nutrition for travel, fluid intake and dehydration, all of these elements actually play essential role as a pillar for the athletes, for the coach to reach or to allow their athletes to reach peak performance. All right. The next one, goal setting. Many coaches develop a desire to produce successful performance and gain mastery of any task completed by their athletes. So, what actually goal setting? For me, I'm not going to elaborate on the goal setting in terms of theoretical, but in terms of practicality, what actually to cut the story short, what actually goal setting? Goal setting referring to the element that you want to set for your goals in terms of short term or long term of your performance, of your athletes' performance, of your team performance, and so on. So what inside the goal setting? Goal setting must have outcome goals, performance goals, and the process goal. How are you going to achieve your goal? How are you going to perform to reach the performance in the peak performance? How are we going to develop the goal setting? When you want to have like a team of handball, a team of hockey player want to reach a certain level, every athletes, every players in that particular team, no matter how many of them, must have one goal for their team. But every athlete must have a very specific goals for every element for them to reach peak performance. For example, if VO2 max level or if fitness level of your athletes average of 7 of the level norms or something like that, but 20% of your athletes in your particular sports actually under or below 50. So those who are below 50 must reach into 70% and above. And those who are 70% and above must have the specific in order for them to push their team into a certain level of performance, like for example, 80% or 90%. So every element of the fitness level that they refer with must have a very specific, for example, like endurance level, you need to reach at least level 9 of your performance in order for you to coping with other team members in your team. So coach must know how to push their athletes into certain level. So the goals must be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. The time-based, we cannot set the we cannot say, oh, by the end of my program, I want to reach at least yo-yo test at least a level 10. But when? So you need to have a proper what we call intervention program for young athletes or for athletes to be into that certain level. For example, you give them within 2 months, within 3 months, I want to make sure that you reach level 9 or level 10 of your VO2 max level yo-yo test. So every athlete must have that type of setting. So goal setting actually refer to the long-term or short-term goal setting, individual or team. So every team must have same page, same thought of the goal setting. But individual referring with the positive or negative or weakness or advantage that you have or strength that you have in your own as an athlete. So coach must elaborate on the goal setting for the every athletes of their team to make sure that the performance, the peak performance of their team become higher and higher. Communication, coaches versus athletes, feedback on the skill, fitness development, safety, nutrition, or injury prevention. So in a goal setting, normally they have a training logbook. They are sometimes putting or write down the element. Communication referring with many types. For example, the communication that I use during my training time, I use one-to-one conversation, and sometimes I use a logbook to write down what I feel about coach, about my friends, my teammate, about the environment of the training area, about the what else, the element of the agent that affected my training. Sometimes my training better or sometimes excellent, and sometimes my training very poor in that particular this one. Why? Then I refer and I write down on the psychological trait. So psychological trait that I refer here is sometimes I cannot sleep very well during a night. Why? Because I've been disturbed with the loud music or whatever related. So this is the good way of the communication between coaches and athletes. Okay, the last one of the goal setting is commitment, perseverance, dedication, and effort on the attaining a specific standard of proficiency on a task, usually on the specific time. So commitment is a big value in whatever you're doing in your life, no matter that you involve with sports, you involve with other activities in your life. So commitment towards what you want to do. You want to become a top 5 from the bottom all the way of your training training program, or you want to become a very top 5 later on when you are doing your goal setting. So this is depending on the athletes and coaches communication, and coaches must advise athletes to make sure that the commitment, dedication, and efforts to be a perfectionist in your particular sports, to be up level to the international or globally global athletes in the world. All right. Coaches knowledge. This is a continuous coaching education actually. Coaching knowledge, we need to have the effective communication skill among coaches, athletes, among coaches with the school or the so-called the event management, so-called the association, the national sports council, state sports council, and so on. The effective communication actually can gain something good in your career as a coach, and at the same time, effective communication can assist athletes to achieve their peak performance. Attitudes and belief regarding doping in sports. This is very important. Nowadays, sports actually we talk about fairness in sports. So when we talk about fairness, the World Anti-Doping Agency (WADA) actually has come with the whatever method and mechanism in order to make sure that every athlete not take substance who actually banned by WADA. So the attitudes from and belief from coaches play essential role here to give a full cooperation with the WADA, or in Malaysia we call it ADAMAS, to test them, to make sure that young athletes or athletes who are involved in sports not get in touch or not use a substance which is banned by WADA, because there is no cheating in sports. So by belief with the attitudes and the belief regarding doping in sport actually can save our new generation to not get involved with sports doping, which is later on can affect their life. All right, on the physical element. All right, I'm continuing with upgrading sports skill development concurrent with enhancement of the international rules and regulation. This is refer when you actually taking a coaching course at year back 10 years ago, but nowadays you're not doing any continuous coaching education, you might be left behind, because I confident that upgrading of the sports skill development at every coaching, at every association may occur at least in 2 times in 4 years time. Is equivalent to the Olympic cycle. So every coaches must upgrade their sports skill. Sports technology, sports science, and sport medicine empowerment. Every coach is not only coach actually is a sports scientist. So in order for you to be a sports scientist, you need to upgrade your knowledge, you need to empower your sports technology, your sports science, and sport medicine while you're doing your own training regime. Ability to analyze within this session. Ability to analyze within this session initially, and the tactical aspect of the performance. Coach must able to analyze their tactical or technical aspect. And the last really, coaching methodology and pedagogy with a different age group. So we need to make sure that the way that we coach the young kids, or the way we coach adults or teenagers, there is a different approach that we need to take into consideration. So the coaching methodology and pedagogy, you also need to learn from time to time with continuous coaching education via internet, via courses that might be happen to your own country or at your own states. I can guarantee the element of the science or the methodology and so on, at least every 6 months there is something new coming up. So if you left the program on the coaches continuous coaching education, quite some time you must be refreshed in certain level of upbringing level. All right, the next one, on the training stage, be fit and be ready on your program that you do. All right, every training stage of athletes, we need to have like a training stage is more or less like a lifespan of the athletes. What actually training stage or periodization that you look at? For example, in a training stage of the periodization plan, we have around 5 elements. We have daily training day. We call it training day for 1 day. We have microcycle. We have for 1 week. We have mesocycle for 4 weeks. We have the microcycle, just now mesocycle, macrocycle for 52 weeks, and quadrennial cycle for the 4 years. So the element quad 1 actually refer to the elite performance who are actually have the 4-year cycle, for example, for the Olympic. So what the element that you should refer with the theory of the periodization plan? We need to refer with the transition with the phases like preparatory on the general or specific preparation, competitive like pre-com or during the competition, and lastly is transition. So all these elements, when you mix the element of the periodization plan, you need to without fail need to check on the sensitive period of the as a yardstick for the performance. So you need to refer on the age group, you need to refer on the training age of the particular sports. And the element that you should be into your periodization plan or training block or something like that, you need to have like saying like conditioning, saying like nutrition, element from sports science, element from the sport medicine on the recovery, element that relate to the skill and tactical, element that refer with the so-called competition, local or international, something like what I did mention just now. The training stage, you need to make sure that be fit to be ready. Don't be ready, but you are not fit. So you need to be make sure that your athletes achieve in certain level of fitness, that be ready to compete. If they are not ready to compete, you need to find a different way of approach. Is that possible for them to compete with this competition, like a 5-star competition? At the same time, the athlete is just ready for the level of 3-star competition. So you need to make sure that the athletes fit, and automatically, hopefully by body, your body fit, you ready, and the prevention of injury or injury occur very less during your program. And lastly, of course, you will have the peak performance of the training stage. Okay, early versus late maturing athletes. In worldwide, 25% of the youngsters identified as elite athletes at an early age were identified the same way at the later date. So from the 25 of the youngsters identified as athletes elite, this is referring with the training age that they start with. But by the end of the day, if you are training child athletes, remember not to treat them like adult in miniature. So encourage sport sampling. For example, like if you are not specialized them, like for example, sports like diving, rhythmic gymnastic, whatever others, diving and so on, you need to encourage sport sampling, playing more than one sport throughout the year, and promote physical literature like ability, confidence, desire to be physically active for life. We don't want to have those who are training early age, later on they don't want to, or they discontinue with a physical activity because they feel so bored, they feel so torture with the training program that they have. So preparation, training of physical activity after the performance, high performance program, or after their training, hard training, very important to maintain their athletes' health. Okay, what's the difference between early and late maturing athletes. The difference between both actually related to somatic growth or maturity, weight, height, body composition, bone mass, menstrual consideration, physical growth, and cognitive development. All right. Early sports training for younger athletes do not appear to enhance athletics achievement or ability. It is not possible to predict future athletic excellence, but this is only refer for the normal sports. It's not early sports like I did mention rhythmic gymnastic, diving, and so on, because like rhythmic gymnastic and so on, when you start early, normally they finish or their end of their training might be they should represent country at least at age 15. So when you counted is minimize 8 years of training, you need to represent Malaysia if you are in a perfect mold. All right. So in general, most of children are physically and cognitively equipped to participate and complete in sports by age of 12 years and able to comprehend the complex tasks required in specific sports. So they mentioned here 12 years. Sometimes you can go into 8 to 12 years, but normally there is no sports that prepare the athletes for 2 years that you can easily represent your own country. Very difficult to have that type. All right, there is a cited from somewhere on the early maturing adults, maturing adolescent, males tend to be taller than greater muscle mass, fat mass, and muscle strength compared with average or late maturing males. So this is referring to males or boys. All right, I think this is almost the last slide. Okay, before we end, I would like to share on the burnout and dropout, but most probably the sharing of the burnout and dropout is just on the comparison. Like for example, ES is early specialization, LTAD is long-term athletes development. The comparison, number one, quick performance improvement, the early specialization. You can see the very fast, like for example, like you want to go to MSSM, you train for 3 months, but you can see the quick performance improvement by pushing them. But on the long-term athletes development, you slower performance improvement. Continues with the early specialization on the best performance achieved, normally by 15 to 16 years because of the quick adaptation. And best performance achieved for the long-term athletes development refer to the 18 and older and age of the physiological and psychological maturity on the maturation. Inconsistency of the performance in the competition for the early specialization and consistency of performance in competition for the long-term athletes development. So by age of 18, athletes were burned out. This is normally happen for the early specialization if they don't have any so-called structured program. But for the long-term athletes development, longer athletics life. And of course, this is the most critical part on the early specialization, prone to injuries because of force of adaptation, and for long-term athletes development on the few injuries. So normally early specialization, if they do not have the standard or structured program, they're prone to injuries because of forced adaptation. So they're forced to allow the certain level or certain degrees of performance. That is why when you or athletes having the injury, easily athletes discontinue and burn out and drop out sometime when the happen when they start doing a same training program for quite some time, that sometimes dropout happen not because of the injuries but because of the element of psychology, because you repeated program daily and daily within a year by year, something like that. So I think that's all from me. Yeah, that's all from me for the program that we have today on the to make sure that everybody take home something good point from my discussion or my program today. I would like to say thank you, and I really hope that learning how to prepare athletes for the peak performance can assist or can help everybody to take into consideration for the coach's responsibility. And I really hope by doing our session today can open eye to the coaches to be a part or to learn the process of the preparation of athletes for the peak performance. Okay.